Have you ever wondered what actually goes into a high-end beauty campaign? There's the concept, and then the production, and then the actual execution. There is so much more that goes into actually creating work that looks expensive and gets people's attention. In this video, I'm gonna be breaking down how I produce a beauty campaign from start to finish. So if you are a photographer looking to get into the beauty industry or a brand looking to produce your first photo shoot, this video is for you. Also, stick around because I'm also going to be spilling the real costs. The cost it would take you as a photographer to produce this as a portfolio building shoot, and as a client, how much this would actually cost you if you were to produce this in LA. Before I even touch a camera, I need a game plan. And so this starts the pre-production phase. Because without this step, the entire shoot will be unorganized. So the pre-production is the most important part, and it includes mood boarding and concepting, casting, and location scouting. And so for this particular project, my goal was to produce a lip gloss campaign. We wanted to capture the high shine and juiciness of the glosses by playing with different fruits and visual components. So we had a lot of different objectives for the day. You could see the desired deliverables down below, which was 30 final still images, a 30-second professional video, one 3 to 4 educational video for myself, and 2 reels, one with BTS and the model, and then a product focused reel. And so this was the objective for the day. And this is very similar to something that I would actually provide for my clients. And so here we have the shoot mood board. And so it was as much about capturing the lip gloss on the model, really showcasing the juiciness and the shine, as well as a whole separate component that focused on product only and texture photography. And keep in mind, we are also juggling both these shots in photo and video. But specifically, I have a more detailed shot list here that itemizes everything by stills and motion, and even a UGC component. Especially when I'm shooting for a lot of brands that want to maximize their shoot time, I always advocate for more content creation, the better if we can work it into the timeline. So there was oftentimes when a model wasn't being photographed on set, I would have another content creator or someone else on set to actually be able to create some UGC style content that will also create more assets for the brand at the end of the day that they need to launch their campaign. Here's where I actually outline the location and the team. As you can see, I have a pretty large crew for this with 3 models, a hair and makeup artist, as well as a UGC content creator who would be capturing social content for me, as well as a BTS videographer. And I myself, my goal would be to produce, direct, photo, and video for this shoot. So I had a lot of tasks on this shoot day, so I'm very grateful for this team for keeping me on track. Here I also included some specific video references. For this, we wanted to do a mix of professional video as well as iPhone video for UGC content. So it was really important that I came ready with specific references because it was going to be a very time sensitive shoot day, and I could give that to the respective team members to ensure that they knew exactly what they were going to be creating. And so now that I have the creative brief outlined, and if I'm shooting this for a brand, I want to make sure that the brand signs off on the creative brief. And once that is officially locked in, I will go and lock in all my necessary crew and location, and I will start coming up with the actual call sheet, which basically includes everything, when, where, what time is needed for the day. So I have a very kind of simple structure for my call sheets. I don't include everything that a call sheet typically includes, but I include all the main logistics, which is the parking, the entry instructions, the call time for each crew member, as well as the estimated timeline for the day, which is super important to give the team just an overview of what's happening. And I do something a little different with my call sheets because I also include the creative brief. I link it in the document as well as outline and give the team specific notes for their respective roles. This is a one-stop document that will really answer all those little minuscule questions that might come up when it comes to planning for the photo shoot day. I share it with the entire team prior to the shoot day so that we are all aligned with the vision. Now it's time for the fun part, which is the photo shoot day. This is where all the planning gets to really come to life. For this photo shoot, I already had a really clearly defined lighting setup that I wanted to use. We were using all constant light for this photo shoot because we were mixing between photo and video simultaneously with a lot of BTS videography going on. It just makes sense to really lean towards constant light for the entirety of the photo shoot. Even though strobes can be more powerful, for a scenario like this when we have a lot of different varying assets to capture, it's just more time efficient to actually just use constant light. And so for the first part of the photo shoot, which was all the on-model photography, I really wanted to use a really soft but hard lighting setup. And so to do that, I had a key light with a softbox, with a really large softbox. It was around 120 centimeters, super soft, super large, to create this really wrapped lighting around the models. I had a silver reflector under their chin to bounce some light up and fill under the chin, and to kind of bring in that hard lighting effect to create that kind of texture and shine on the skin and the lip gloss. I had a Forza 60C and I had it kind of shining directly in the model's face. Kind of bright for them, but worked out perfectly for me. And it created this beautiful shine in the skin that you can see here. I also had another constant light that was a mix panel that was solely lighting the backdrop. For the second part of the photo shoot, which was more product photography, I had a different lighting setup. I wanted to use more of the color settings on the nan lights. And so I created a gradient effect that worked out beautifully for the product, which was this kind of beautiful sunset color. So I set the mix panel and the Forza 60C to different colors, one on orange, and I believe the other one was on like a bluish purple. And I had those bouncing onto the backdrop, and I had the softbox still be my key light, and so it created this super soft light to light the product. And I got some beautiful texture shots and product shots from that simple setup. It honestly turned out way better than I imagined, and it was all using the same 3 lighting setups. That was super easy for me to kind of switch between settings throughout the shoot day. And that brings us to the next phase of the photo shoot production, which is the post-production and the actual delivery of the campaign. This is where we get to make the beautiful images flawless. And when it comes to beauty photography, retouching is a really important part of the photo shoot process. Because beauty photography is so detail-oriented, every detail matters, and usually this is where we're perfecting the skin, just making sure there's no crazy flyaways and anything like that. I typically lean towards a more natural retouch. I like to see the actual model's skin texture, and I am super lucky that I work with a retoucher for all of my projects. So typically she is the one retouching the imagery, and I'm usually responsible for doing the color grading and making sure that the coloring is in alignment with the style that I love and the client is looking for. And then she takes care of the retouching process. I should also add that during this kind of post-production process, if this was for a client, I would have actually sent the selects to my client for them to make their final selection. But since this was more of a personal project for me, I made the selection myself and then sent them off to my editor. And so that's kind of a wrap on the full photo shoot process from start to finish. And so I hope that was helpful and giving you some insight on actually how to plan and produce a beauty photo shoot. I feel like I might have missed a few things, so if there is anything that I missed or something you want me to cover more in depth, let me know in the comments down below. And so now let's talk about the numbers. So how much would this actually cost you if you were producing this as a portfolio building shoot? So if you're a photographer producing this to build your portfolio, you would spend probably around $400 for the photo shoot rental. That's how much I ended up spending through a Peerspace. I was lucky enough to have a Peerspace credit, so I didn't have to go out of pocket for that expense, but it was around $400 for the photo shoot space, which I rented for about 4 to 5 hours. The models and the rest of the crew I was able to work with on a collab basis because we're all coming together and building our portfolios. The other thing I did have to pay for in addition to the location was the actual props and products that we used. I ended up spending around $80 at Sephora for multiple versions of the lip gloss that we used. And so the total cost for this photo shoot as a photographer who's producing this for my portfolio, I spent around $480 for this entire photo shoot. And so I think this is a totally doable investment if you are looking to build your portfolio. And honestly, on the lower end, I've definitely known photographers to spend over $1,000 on a portfolio building project. And so I think for the amount of visuals and assets I got from this photo shoot, this was absolutely a worthwhile investment for my portfolio. And so now let's total up the numbers for what a brand might pay to produce this photo shoot in LA. And of course, the first fee that we have to account for is my own creative fee. As the photographer and videographer, I'm doing two roles as well as producing potentially for this photo shoot. So most likely I would have charged around $5,000 for my day rate. I would have also charged separately for my equipment, which would have been around $750. Sliding scale depending on who the client is and the actual budget. So that number can range. Let's say, for example, that this client was going to be using these images for social and web and paid ads. And so that's usually when we need to take into account usage. And so I probably would have charged, let's say, an additional $1,500 for the usage rate. And now we're going into the production costs. This would be the crew and everything else that's needed to execute the photo shoot. And so for the BTS videographer, this number can definitely range depending on the caliber of videographer and the actual usage that the videos would be used. But let's say for the sake of this example, this BTS videographer would be making around $2,000 for the day. And so for the content creator, I would probably estimate around $750 to $1,200 for the content creator that would just be running around with an iPhone and taking BTS, plus the props, which are around $80 to $100, which were super minimal for this photo shoot. The next is the location, which we did a pretty reasonable location. So I would estimate around $1,000 to $1,200 for the location. Now the model's fees would definitely vary, so there is a wide range here. And let's say for the sake of this example, the models charge $2,000 each, and that includes the usage and the agency fees. And so for 3 models, that would be around $6,000 for the models alone. And then for the makeup artist and the hair, let's say they're each charging around $1,500 for the day, which I feel like is an average makeup artist rate for LA. Makeup artist, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but that would be around $3,000 for the hair and the makeup artist, which I think is a really great rate. And now let's not forget about the post-production. If we are billing separately for the post-production and that is not included in my creative fee, which depending on the size of the brand, it won't be included, it just depends. And so for this kind of scale of photo shoot, let's just say we're doing around $2,000 for the post-production. And this would include both photo and video. So I think that is an actual really great rate for the amount of deliverables that is actually being passed over to the client. And so after my calculation, the total for this beauty campaign would be around $22,000. And so this would be probably a mid-sized beauty brand that is paying this rate. I wouldn't expect or charge these rates for a more smaller brand, especially something like a local beauty brand. I probably wouldn't charge these rates. These are pretty substantial and they're full commercial rates. They're definitely, of course, what the team deserves, but we always have some flexibility with smaller brands and smaller businesses. And again, this varies. So this same campaign can vary from $10,000 all the way up to $50,000 depending on the scope. And so this is why pricing matters. And at the end of the day, it's really understanding the value that you're bringing to the table, the team is bringing to the table, as well as who you are actually speaking to. I hope you learned something new throughout this video. I really love diving into the nitty-gritty production details as well as the pricing for it all. I think there's a lot of gatekeeping when it comes to pricing within the commercial industry. So I love talking about these type of topics because it brings a level of awareness and transparency within the industry, which I think is really empowering and super helpful, especially to my budding commercial photographers out there. And if you are a photographer who is looking to get more into the beauty space, I also have a free beauty lighting guide that I will link in the description down below. It's totally free. It has my most commonly used, tried and true beauty lighting setups, as well as my go-to beauty lighting settings and some other helpful gear links that you can access down below. And of course, if you loved this video, please leave a like and a subscribe. Stay tuned because we have a lot more videos like this coming soon, and every interaction helps support this growing channel. So I greatly appreciate it. And as always, I will see you in the next video.